I call it a microcosm, like the intronaut that we are, to look within the innerverse instead of the universe. So that innerverse is really important because as I was going through cancer, instead of, oh my gosh, my body betrayed me, or how could this happen to me? So there, that victim talk, instead I talked to my cells directly, and I sent love to myself.
Today we're talking to Mahwish Syed. She is an award-winning fashion and interior designer, best-selling author, breast cancer survivor, and a proud mother. Her book, Purgatory to Paradise, describes her cancer journey, how she healed through design, and is available on Amazon.
That has been a passion project and a soul project of mine, Hillary, and I'm so thrilled that you were able to read it. We deal with our bodies in a very adversarial way, or even like, so the book is about cancer for your listeners who don't know, and the subtitle is How Cancer Helped Me Design an Authentic Life, which I'm an interior and fashion designer, and I feel like I've been dealing with beauty my whole life for decades. And the kind of beauty I want to really define here is not cosmetics. It's not on the surface of things. A lot of people, that word has been hijacked by the commercial industry that way. But beauty from a cellular level, beauty from an alignment level, cellular alignment in the spirit of Bruce Lipton. Um, you know, this idea of the divine intelligence of our cells, and that it's a very sentient community. It's an ecosystem. And this is what I said in my book, that we are a living ecosystem of intelligent life. And basically, my son, when he watched, what's that movie, Inside Out, like that idea of like our emotions and like talking with one another, I think kind of introduces that on a certain level, where we kind of look at ourselves as I call it a microcosm, like the intronaut that we are, to look within the innerverse instead of the universe. So that innerverse is really important because as I was going through cancer, instead of, oh my gosh, my body betrayed me, or how could this happen to me? So there, that victim talk, instead I talked to my cells directly, and I sent love to myself. And speaking of my son, he was 9 at the time, and he plays a vital role in my book because parenting and how to frame cancer to a child, and how to share that experience with a child, was really important because I didn't want to hide anything from him. And the way I introduced cancer to him was where, I think it's really important to share. We went to our happy place, the Peggy Rockefeller Rose Garden in the Bronx Botanical Garden. And we sat on Lilac Hill, and I wanted it to be a place where I can really bring home this idea. And I used the analogy of my body as a garden. And I said, my body is like this garden. He loves to garden with me. And I said, sometimes in the garden, it's a very fertile soil, and sometimes weeds grow, right? Sometimes we just need to pull out certain things that don't belong there. And so, of course, he got teary and I got teary, and we sat down, and I said, look, this is a tiny little weed. And he actually asked me, he said, how big is it, Mama? And I was wearing a little ring, my grandmother's ring, on my finger, and I pointed to one of the diamonds, and I said, tiny, little tiny, just about this size. He's visual like his mother. And so I wanted, like, it was small. And he's like, okay. And I said, so it's a fertile body, it's fertile. And so, of course, things are going to grow in this beautiful body instead of, oh my God, my body let me down.
Yes.
So, the idea of our bodies being this beautiful ecosystem of life, where death and life are cyclical, it's a dance. And that's why I used the analogy of the goddess Persephone, the goddess of the seasons. And Persephone and I go way back. We go, when I was like 8 or 9 years old, when I was reading Greek mythology. And little did I know I would become her, but in more ways than one. And I think this idea of autophagy and apoptosis, this idea of our cellular renewal, our organs renew, our skin renews. And so I think when I heard you speak, Hillary, and I was so impressed, first of all, I'm like, you have this gentle grace, which anyone can, I can listen to you all day. So I was like, I have to talk with her. Like, I just have to talk with her. Like, I just, and so that's where it started. And I think if we listen to our inner GPS, if we listen to that soft, quiet whisper, we create space to do these things, which I feel like is deconditioning from the conditioning that we've had as children sometimes of having to kind of stay in the box, stay in that box, be proper, do this, do this, do this, follow this, almost in a formulaic way. And there is no formula for success, as much as we try. So in my book, one of the things I talk about in many myriad of ways is dealing with uncertainty and dealing with the uncertainty of life and dealing with the possibility of death. Now, here's an interesting thing. I think we're all in denial that one day we'll die because we think, oh, it'll happen to other people. We hear about other people dying or, sometimes, but like death is this kind of concept that we are not connected with. And I think it's really important to also come to terms with Hades, which is Persephone's divine lover and partner, right? So this idea of death being a real lover, being a friend, being a partner is a very interesting concept, because if I think about it that way, then the decisions that I make today are going to be like, I'm not putting things off. I'm not living in purgatory, that purgatory of, oh, waiting room. Like, I'll wait, I'll put it off, I'll procrastinate, I'll just play it safe. And instead of living in purgatory, which I felt like I had been doing, like many of us do, I decided to actively create my paradise, design it from the inside out in my body, design it from the spaces that I live in and work on. This dance between your space and your body is fluid. And, I got my certification in applied quantum biology, and looking at your space and your health from a circadian standpoint, from this beautiful, even beyond cellular. Now this is on a subatomic, energetic vibrational level.
Yes.
So that part is now informing my work in such a fabulous way that the book planted those seeds. There's going to be other books, but the book is just introducing these concepts, and now I'm actually embodying them.
Yeah. Yeah. That I remember really standing out to me in your book is this dance, right? This dance with Hades. It is a transition from, fearing the body, almost fearing death, to having a back and forth with it, right? Having a back and forth with the body and death.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's really important to recognize that your body is dying all the time and renewing all the time on a very scientific, very cellular level, constantly. When you go to sleep, and by the way, think about it this way, your underworld, that nighttime when you're sleeping, that's when that renewal happens. It doesn't happen during the day. It happens when you rest in your darkness. So you're renewing yourself like the goddess that you are at night when you're fully in repose. And then during the day, you rise from your underworld and you're in the upper world in the sunlight. And then you're active. That's the active kind of yang part of your day, right? So the yin and yang, the underworld and the upper world, death and life is constantly a part of, and it's a cycle. And by the way, this is a quantum approach. The quantum part is the fact that we are ancient beings, Hillary. We and our biology it's been around for thousands of years. If you look at human existence on this planet as a 24-hour clock, only within the last 30 seconds do we have electricity.
Yeah, that's amazing,
Right?
right? Yeah.
So that means that we have been in tune with nature and in tune with the sun and the cycles of the seasons much more. And since we've become divorced from that through the advent of electricity and all the new inventions, we have actually modern disease and the rise of cancer, the rise of endocrine disrupting metabolic disorders, all of these conditions, including mental health disorders, are actually a byproduct of being divorced from nature. And I think it's really important to stress that when you design your life, pay attention to what your ancestors did and how they lived. I'll give you an example. Do you know that the food that you eat has a sun signature?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah. So, real basic, whatever latitude you're in,
Mm-hmm.
it has a certain level of frequency of light, right, for that time of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever is grown at your latitude will have a sun signature. And it comes in the forms of sugars in the fruit and vegetables. Okay. So when you imbibe that, you're actually photosynthesizing that as well, because we're photosynthesizing beings. So we are taking in that sun signature. Now, if you eat something from a different latitude, where, for example, from the equator, which it gets sun, all around, if you eat that when in the wintertime, like you're in Canada and you're eating something
Mm-hmm.
from Costa Rica, you're going to have a different sun signature. And what that does is sends different signals. It confuses your body. It actually,
Mm-hmm.
your body doesn't know what to do. And it has extra sugars in it from the sun, where you're now metabolizing sugars that are not in tune. So this idea of our ancestors who only had, we're growing root vegetables and we're using the root vegetables during winter. There's a lot of science now backing that up because it's more in alignment with your metabolism and your quantum biology of being able to imbibe that nutrition versus something that now we can get everything, flown in and trucked
Yeah.
in everywhere. So really paying attention to local farmers, what's grown locally and eating that trumps even organic, by the way.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So think about what's local and what's being produced around you right now. It's going to be more in line with your metabolism and your circadian rhythm as well.
Wow, yeah, I like that. I like that idea. I live in a place that we're surrounded by farms that have little farm stands at the end of their driveways and stuff. So it's nice that way.
Oh my gosh, I have stopped. I know my farmers by their first name. Like
Yeah.
I ask them questions like, what do you feed the chickens? Like the yolk is different. What did you change the feed? Like I'm just like very, very, talking about, I don't know. I bought chicken feet the other day and I was like, I'm gonna make gelatin. So yeah, me making chicken feet gelatin. Yeah, that's a thing. So
Wow.
I'm really getting into that. So designing your life really means exploring, being curious, going out of your comfort zone, maybe trying chicken feet. But all I'm saying is think about exploration and looking at your body as this fabulous miracle that it is. And, you know, me also, I went through hardcore allopathic treatment. I went through surgery, chemo, radiation, medicine, all of that. And I had complications up the wazoo. And I think it's really important to stress that you can renew yourself. You
Mhm.
can. I didn't let myself think any other thing. I knew I was going to be better. I knew I was going to be better because I made that decision. It was just that simple. I
Yeah.
made that decision. And I
What did
think
that feel? Oh,
that
sorry. Yeah. No,
you know, I
continue.
think the hypnosis is really important because actually two things. One, I went through hypnosis while during chemo and I knew the effectiveness of it. Um, it really, really, really changed how I perceived the fatigue, which was hard, really hard, and the bone pain. The other thing was when you make that decision for yourself, and that's where that mind body connection is, we can explore that too, is it is everything. It is
Mhm.
everything. Because I was so sure, like there was no doubt that I wasn't going to be here for my son. When I made that decision to be there, everything else that I did was in alignment with that decision. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you, so there's a few things going through my mind. Um, Number one, um, did you ever have fear?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Oh, so much.
And I
Fear.
think I ask only because I think we beat ourselves up when we go into that only think positive thoughts and know that you're going to be okay and all that stuff. Any little fear that creeps in, what I hear from clients, what I even feel myself sometimes, is they start to beat themselves up because they think that any speck of fear will totally wipe everything that they've been working on off the table.
No, no. And here's the thing. This is um this is sharing a vulnerability. What I feared less death than I feared the heartbreak that I knew was coming in the relationship I was in, which was a toxic relationship. And I think I wrote a little bit about that, which
Mhm.
is this idea that this person wouldn't see me as beautiful anymore because I look different, that this person wouldn't love me because I wasn't able to function for him and to be as useful for
Yeah.
him. And
Yeah.
so I was fearing those things and my fears came true. But I think it's important to recognize that fear is your ally. It's been villainized, just like despair, just like depression, just like anger. I was having a conversation with a friend about that. I said, anger is divine too.
Mhm.
Anger, there are goddesses that are bring on that divine wrath of righting the wrongs of injustices. If there are injustices in the world, your anger is an important ingredient in order to energize you to channel that anger into action, right?
That's right.
And so anger, fear, fear mobilizes. I mean, if you didn't fear the tiger, if you didn't run, you'd get eaten. So
Yeah, that's true.
you need the fear. It is your alarm. It's something's wrong. Like that is, again, I wrote in my book, you don't put, a post-it note with a smiley face on your empty gas gauge just to hide the fact that your body's running on empty, right? So if you continually push yourself to the point of exhaustion, you're going to pay the price. And I think fear can be mobilized, can be channeled into action in a healthy way to get you
Mhm.
to do something that you need to do that's important. I have girlfriends who, knew what I went through and were too scared to get a mammogram. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to know? You're a mother. It's irresponsible for you to not want to be there for your children. You need to face that and go and make sure you're okay.
Mhm.
That to me was like a no-brainer, but it was a fear that, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that what if then I do have to take action? My whole idea of my body's going to change. My whole idea of my world is going to change. And I think there's so much uncertainty in life. Life is a beautiful, fragile, yet so strong thing. I think of a spider's web, Hillary, and the tensile strength of a spider's web, the spider silk is stronger than steel.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay. I'm a textile girl. I'm a,
Yes.
and I believe I use the analogy of the spider web because that's what life is. Life is delicate. Life is beautiful. Life is strong and fragile at the same time.
Yeah.
And we don't know when it's our time. We don't know when we have to pivot, but we can at least become as fluid and as flexible as a tango dancer.
Mhm.
And I use the analogy of the tango because I had a terrible time. I got yelled at by my teacher because I always wanted to lead the masculine. I was still in my masculine. I'm like, oh, so I had to like receive and let my partner lead me. And it was really funny because he'd always yell at me and say, Mahwish, let him finish the sentence. Let him finish the sentence. And I'm like, because I'm like, oh, I think he's gonna go here. And I would like get myself ready to be there and like make myself just anticipate, right? And I finally had to close my eyes and just let my body listen to his body and follow. And it
Yeah.
was a great lesson for us to sometimes receive, because you have to be open to receive, right? You have to,
Yes.
and to receive that inner wisdom inside our bodies and say, oh, my body, I know I should get up at 7 o'clock, but my body just wants to sleep a little longer. And sometimes we make ourselves get up.
Yeah.
Yourselves. Sometimes we need to just sleep in. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that. And
It's
I
really,
think I'm trying with that.
yeah, it is really listening, right, to the body. And I think, you know, in terms of cells, um, that was the biggest thing that I learned with clients, with myself, still learning, is your cells want to be heard. Your body wants to be heard. And whenever I've taken somebody into their body, their cells are always grateful afterwards and wanting to be part of your journey, right? It's almost like this best friend relationship and you finally found them in a sense, you know?
I love that. I love that. And by the way, one thing I feel like when when we frame things, it's really important, and we forget that sometimes society frames things for us.
Mm.
And this whole separation between mind and body, I find really problematic because, we share the same cells in our gut as in our brain, and so on and so forth. And I feel like we have to look at our bodies in a different way, especially when like even soul and body people separate out. And for me, and I just put it out there in my book too, it was this idea of your soul and your body and your emotions are one. Like think about water is in many different forms: gas, liquid, solid, and liquid crystal, which is the fourth phase of water, by the way.
Mm.
Not just three, there's four. We're liquid crystal. And this idea of this plasticity, this ability to change and move, it's still water. It's all
Yeah.
one. And so our emotions, I feel, are our bodies and physical in that liquid crystal form. And so if we can channel those emotions and create that garden within, and to be able to water and nurture and prune out whatever it is that we need, and not treat our bodies like that beautiful garden with that fertility inside, then it's like, oh, I'm just visiting my garden and I'm going to just, smell the roses for a little while, or I'm going to, take, some pruning this and pruning that out. And it's just a matter of being neutral with it, like not bad or good.
Yeah.
It's just, it's your garden. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's seeing yourself in a non-judgmental way. I think it's when we get caught up when we start judging things, even good, right? Good or bad. That's where we get caught up, I think. Because then it's, well, how do I put this into words? I can see it, I can feel it. It's hard to say in words sometimes, but um um it's almost like judging a child, right? Think of a cell as a child. Oh, I'm going to judge you as bad cell, right? And
Yeah.
of course, that cell is going to start to feel sad and not a part of the system and your system, you know? And so, yeah, it just keeps coming back in my mind. Things that people see their cells. So when we go down to the cellular level and I say, okay, what does that cell look like? Sometimes it's like, it's anything from a cowboy to, I've heard some interesting things. But usually the expression, the emotion from the cell is a little like overworked or sad or not not its lively self, let's say. And then after working with it I get them to look at the cell again and what comes to you, what does it look like? How is it displaying itself? And it's amazing how it changes, right? So yeah, absolutely. I think it really is about not separating the soul and the mind and the body. It's all working as one and feeling into that oneness. That oneness.
Yeah. It's also because society and modern science parses out this mechanistic view of our bodies, like it's a mechanical thing. Like if we fix this little cog, then everything will run right. And
Mm-hmm.
we're not machines. So this idea of what you do, Hillary, really fascinates me because you're dealing with it on a very fluid and um dare I say magical level because I because you're circumventing that mechanistic kind of mechanical machine mentality of looking at our bodies from just
Mm-hmm.
this it's like a very deductive way. So this idea of using your imagination, using visualization, being able to go within, and here's the crazy part, you literally are on a biochemical level changing your body as you do that.